Disney made the final decision as to whether Mr. Depp would be in Pirate 6.
I'll sustain the objection. I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Mr. Wiggum, it may have been trending badly as of that time, but Disney had not gone in the other direction, correct?
No.
So the
Overruled,
email you
I'll
showed me earlier,
You may continue.
the email you showed me earlier was 2 days after the op-ed, and I was saying that Disney had never said that Johnny would not be in the film as of that date.
Overruled. Right.
And my testimony is the exact same as the deposition, which is it was trending badly in the late fall on behalf of Disney, but Jerry Bruckheimer and I were lobbying to make it happen, and so we had hope, and it became clear to me in early 2019 that it was over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wiggum. No further questions.
All right. Thank you. Is this witness subject to recall?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Wiggum, since you're subject to recall, you're still subject to the rule on witnesses, so you cannot discuss your testimony with anybody and you cannot watch any of the trial. Okay, sir?
Okay.
All right. But you're free for today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Your next witness.
Your Honor, before we call the next witness, may we approach briefly for a moment?
Okay, sure. Good. How are you doing, sir? Good afternoon. You can sit down, sir. That's fine.
Good afternoon, Mr. Marks.
Good afternoon.
Would you please state your full name for the record?
Richard Edward Marks.
And Mr. Marks, where do you live?
I live in Hollywood.
Would you tell us a little bit about your educational background, sir?
I'm a product of the public school system in Los Angeles, and I went to UCLA undergraduate, and I'm a graduate of the UCLA School of Law.
When did you graduate from UCLA School of Law?
I graduated in 1973, and I've been an officer of the courts since then, almost 50 years.
Where do you work?
I work at my own law firm, Richard Marks and Associates.
What is Richard Marks and Associates?
It is a transactional entertainment law firm, and we represent individuals, writers, directors, actors, books, but authors. But mainly we represent producers who are developing a product, if you will, to be produced and then exploited on television, features, streaming, things like that.
When you say a transactional law firm, what do you mean by that?
What I do is make deals. They're transactions. I'm a deal guy. So my whole practice, all these decades, has been about getting to yes. How do you make a deal? And then how do you get it documented so people sign it and then are able, it's clear enough that it can be administered and people can know what to do after you've made the deal.
Specifically, what types of clients do you work with?
Well, as I said, I work with all kinds of clients, but my bigger clients and the bulk of my practice is representing producers who produce, they develop and they produce content for exploitation.
Are there any particular clients that you can identify?
Yeah, I've been working for a long time with ITV, which is a huge British company with worldwide reach in entertainment. They produce The Voice, Love Island, and right now I've done all the development legal work on a miniseries that's about to shoot in France and England, starring Michael Douglas as Benjamin Franklin. It's based on a novel that we optioned, I helped them option years ago. Then scripts were written for the 8 hours. Then Michael Douglas was engaged, the director was engaged, and I do all those contracts, and that's ITV. Another one of my big clients is Village Roadshow. They're an Australian company. They partner with Warner Brothers and they produce movies like Matrix, Aquaman, Scooby-Doo. Right now, I am working on a television series for them, doing the legal production, and before that it was development, but the production legal work on a reboot of the old College Bowl show, where two colleges come together with teams and answer questions, and here they're going to win scholarships. And the hosts are Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. So that's currently what I'm working on for Village Roadshow.
Any other clients?
And I would say my third big client is a company called Media Rights, MRC, and they produce movies and TV shows. Recently, I've done a lot of work for them. They are finishing up a miniseries that I'm doing the legal work on for Apple, starring Billy Crudup. We just finished a miniseries for them called Terminal List with Chris Pratt. That's for Amazon. And we recently finished a miniseries doing the legal deal making for MRC on a show called The Shrink Next Door, which is aired. It starred Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd. And then I can't leave out my longest client, which is the producers of Bosch for Amazon. It's got to be 9-10 years ago when we went into Amazon. They had never produced a series, and we negotiated a deal for Michael Conley's book series, and we cast Titus Welliver as Bosch. They wouldn't order a series, they would only order a pilot. And now, in the next few days, what I call the 8th season, but which is the first season of the spinoff, will be available on IMDb TV instead of on Amazon, but Amazon owns IMDb TV. And we're right now writing the 9th season. So I've had this long run with this one particular series.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about the types of deals that you work on for these clients?
Well, when you think of a series or a motion picture, and you see the credits, there's hundreds of credits there. And every one of those people, you have to make a deal with them, and you have to paper it so that they sign it. And you know what to pay them, and what is there a guild involved, a union? What are their services? And what I do is all of that, soup to nuts, many times. Sometimes I work with in-house counsel or other attorneys, and we split up the work. But basically, you know, you want to produce a movie or a show. You might option a book. I do that deal. You might hire a writer. Then you might get a director, then a line producer, a UPM, first AD. Then you start hiring your cast. Then you start making location deals. Then you start renting equipment and props and getting releases for photos you might show or for people who might end up on camera. And then when you're done shooting, you're making deals for merchandising and deals with distributors. And in the old days, it might have been for a DVD or for merchandising, a doll. And so it's really, what I do is make deals. And all deals, I've been doing it for almost 50 years, but they're all the same. They have elements of time, money, credit, rights, and perks. And I have approached deals that way so that I've made myself relevant. When I started out, there were 3 networks and big studios. And an attorney said, well, I'm a TV lawyer or I'm a feature lawyer. I just said, I'm a transactional lawyer. And so I've been able to adapt and make deals with Netflix, Quibi, YouTube, you know, you name it, I've made deals. I mean, I recently made a deal with Hellman's Mayonnaise for an actress who is going to be an influencer for them on the web. And it was it was a good payday for this actress, but that's the way I look at deals. I'm a deal maker, and that's my practice.
Mr. Marks, you testified that you have been working in the entertainment industry almost 50 years. How did you get started in the entertainment industry?
I got started in the entertainment industry by being born in Hollywood, and it's our town industry, if you will. And I've always been interested in it. And when I went to UCLA, I took all the film classes there were. And when I went to UCLA Law School, it was by design because, number one, I couldn't afford the big law school, so UCLA was a public school. It was virtually free. I went to UCLA Law School because if you want to practice entertainment law in Hollywood, you go to UCLA or USC. Those are the schools where you kind of create your contacts and your network. And at UCLA, they had some of the best professors who taught entertainment law-related subjects. So I took copyright, trademark, entertainment contracts, if you will. I took everything entertainment-related. And that's how I kind of built the foundation for then my after-law school career.
What did you do after you graduated from law school?
Well, I wanted to do entertainment transaction law, but I realized that I could earn a little bit more money if I went into entertainment litigation, suing over copyrights and trademarks. And so I took the highest paying job that I could get out of law school, and was in 1973. And I did IP litigation, disputes over copyrights, trademarks, disputes over rights, things like that. And I was a low-level litigator, doing depositions or motions, certainly not sitting at the, examining witnesses, except it might be in a deposition. And I did that for about, it was my first year out of law school.
What did you do after that?
Well, after that, I kind of made a decision that being a litigator wasn't for me, that I wanted to make deals, that I wanted my career to be about getting to yes. And that involved a lot of conflict sometimes, but the goal was to get to yes so that both parties could work together. because the goal was working together and creating the TV show, not making the deal. The deal makers had to step away so that you closed a deal and then people could live with that deal. And so I went to a transactional law firm, and I was there a couple years, and I made deals.
What kind of projects did you work on when you transitioned into that deal-making role?
Well, this is, mid-1970s, and this law firm was hot, if you will. And some of my classmates were there. That's how I got the job. I had to take a cut in pay to go there. I'll never forget, I'm the second chair attorney in a big conference room at Fox, and we're trying to close a deal for our young client, George Lucas, to make a film called Star Wars, a Western space movie. And Fox would not give us the budget or the salary he wanted. And this is the God's honest truth. We said, okay, give us the merchandising. And famously, they gave us the merchandising because they didn't think there was value there. And that's how much our business has changed. While I was at my first transactional firm, we also worked for a client. His name is Sylvester Stallone. His claim to fame is that he was a character actor, but he had written a script that all the major stars wanted to play. They wanted to play the role Rocky. And he said, I will not sell this script unless I play Rocky. And no one was happy about that. And the deal we made was he got to play the role, but it was a very low budget, and he hardly had a dressing room. He hardly had any perks. He wasn't happy about it, but we were able to make up for that in the deals for Rocky 2, 3. And that's the type of deals. It was, at that entertainment transactional firm, we weren't representing major companies, if you will. We were representing artists, writers, directors, talent, like individuals. We weren't representing the companies I do now, like ITV or Village Roadshow.
How long were you at that law firm?
I was at that firm for a couple years.
What did you do after that?
After that, I made a decision that I wanted to go in-house where the full-time business was making product, and it was very tied to production, and I wanted to move away from law firms at that moment. And my first in-house job was for the Ziegler Discount Agency, which was one of the premier literary agencies in town. We represented writers and books and estates of books. And at that time, in late 70s, early 80s, if you wanted to hire a writer or a book, or option a book, there were three places you went. You went to Swifty, which he's kind of famous, Swifty Lazar's Oscar parties, or you went to Swanee, H.L. Swanson, or you went to Ziggy, and I worked for Ziggy.
Did you work for any other companies in an in-house capacity as a deal maker?
Oh yeah. With Ziggy, we made deals for the book The Princess Bride. We did a lot of. We worked for William Goldman, that was his book and his screenplay, and it was a fabulous experience. But that firm was bought by ICM, a much bigger agency, and then I moved to Paramount. That's where I next went. And at Paramount, I was the attorney on the series Cheers and the series Family Ties, which was the break for the young son, Michael J. Fox. And then I did something, because I have never said, I'm just a TV lawyer. I'm a deal maker. I get to yes. And it's sort of unheard of, but I moved from network television doing the deals for Cheers and Family Ties. I moved to features at Paramount because you could earn a little more money in features. And I was married, and I had a child. And in features, I was assigned to do the development and production work for a producer, who's in this case Jerry Bruckheimer, and I also served. They had an overall deal with Eddie Murphy, so I did the legal work on his films like Beverly Hills Cop, Coming to America, things like that. And I was at Paramount about 4 years.
Where'd you go after Paramount?
After Paramount, I got this opportunity to head up business and legal affairs in the feature division for Jerry Weintraub's studio. Jerry was famous at the time for Karate Kid and Ocean's 11, and he represented, Elvis and Frank Sinatra in music, and John Denver. But this was his motion picture company, and I was in features, and we made a film called Troop Beverly Hills, which is starring Shelley Long. We made another film, The Big Blue. We acquired a film library. He was positioning himself to be a major company until he went bankrupt. And that was one of his only failures.
Where'd you go after that?
After Jerry Weintraub, I went to Disney, and I filled in for a year for the head of legal in features, who was on maternity leave and taking a family leave. And so I headed up legal on films like Dick Tracy, Madonna was in that, Rocketeer, another live action film. But what I really remember about my time at Disney is they were revamping the animation department, and they wanted to make a different kind of Disney animated film. And part of it, in the old days, Disney animated films, the voices weren't advertised. They weren't the stars of the movie. Disney was the star, or Dumbo was the star, but the voices were hardly known. And we broke that mold, and it was the first deal where we paid real money to someone to do a voice. Was a deal I made with Robin Williams to voice Aladdin. And it changed the whole history of Disney and feature animation. I worked on Beauty and the Beast, and it was a tremendous experience to be involved with them.
After you worked at Disney, did you continue to fill in-house deal-making roles?
Yeah, I continued my in-house road, even in the world that I could see was consolidating, and it was going to be more and more difficult to stay in-house. After Disney, I went to a company called Media Home Entertainment, and they put up money for films, and for their investment, they got the VHS cassette rights. So Media Home Entertainment was one of the producers, investors in the Nightmare on Elm Street series and Blue Velvet. And what they got was the right to sell video cassettes. They also manufactured and sold the Jane Fonda videos or the NFL videos. And it was a great business, except the studios realized, are we crazy? Why are we letting another company sell video? We should keep that in-house. And so I was not only head of legal, but I was on the board of directors, and we sold the company to Fox so that they could take in the assets and eliminate a competitor.
Where'd you go after that?
After Media Home Entertainment, I went to a company called Kushner Lock. It was at a time in the business there were hundreds of independent producing companies because the networks couldn't produce for themselves. There were laws preventing it. And Kushner Lock, we produced Pinocchio with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. We produced a small movie called Freeway. It was Reese Witherspoon's one of her first roles. And it was, I was there for 8 years. It was a good long run until they, as all those independent companies ultimately did, not all, most, they went bankrupt after 8 years.
What did you do after that?
Now, you can see I'm still chasing the in-house world. I went to a company, Nelvana. They were a Canadian animation company, but they had this big office in LA. I headed up business and legal. We manufactured, made, produced animated television series like Care Bears and merchandising also. Babar, Big Bear, Little Bear, all sorts of animated subjects and merchandising deals and cartoons, if you will. And then that Canadian company closed the LA office and moved back to Canada. I didn't want to move back to Canada. And so my last in-house situation, I went to Universal Network Television, and I did business and legal affairs on Just Shoot Me, television series, a series starring Josh Brolin called Mr. Sterling. It was kind of patterned on Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And at the same time I was at Universal Network Television, I consulted with Nickelodeon Features, and I helped them sort of build out their feature products. They were on the Paramount lot. I had been at Paramount for a long time, and we worked on films such as SpongeBob, the animated film. And then when that consulting ended and NBC came in and bought Universal, that ended my job at Universal, and I made the decision I would go back and be a lawyer at a law firm.
What types of work were you doing when you went back to the law firms?
When I went back to the law firm, I did a lot of, I worked on their clients, and I helped a financier, Robert Sillerman, in effect buy the American Idol brand. I worked with Barry Gordy's company, trying to turn some of his world into theatrical plays. I worked with the Nat King Cole estate, trying to do things. So it was a lot of reality. I remember I worked with J. Walter Thompson, and they were, in effect, creating advertising opportunity branding. And then the one that sticks in my mind is I helped George Foreman market things so that he made a deal to be the face of a thing called the George Foreman Grill, and it was a good practice.
Mr. Marks, you testified that you now are at a law firm called Richard Marks and Associates. When did you start that firm?
Well, after the firm I just told you about was called Greenberg Traurig. It's a large international firm. I moved to a firm called The Point Media in 2006, and I was there for 14 years, doing much the same work that I do now. And then in 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, I went out on my own and formed Richard Marks and Associates.
Over the course of your career, what, if any, changes have you observed in the deal-making space in the entertainment industry?
Well, before I got involved in the business, most deals for writers were how much money per week and how many weeks. When I got into the business, it was already more complicated. But through my decades, all that's happened is it's gotten more and more complicated. Still the essential elements of time, money, credit, perks, money, whatever, but it's gotten more complicated. You had to deal with merchandising, you had to deal with sequels, you had to deal with all sorts of derivative works, video games, you name it, publicity, promotion. It all expanded so that making a deal that might have been, simple 30 years before now was a major production. And, lawyers became integral. You couldn't do a deal without someone who was going to dive into the boilerplate and make sure that it was right.
Your Honor, I'm about to switch gears a little bit. I don't know if you would like to break now for lunch.
That's fine. If you could approach us for a moment, just a minute.
Your Honor, before we take lunch, plaintiff would move in Mr. Marks as an expert in the entertainment industry.
All right, any objection? No.